Welcome to episode number 42 of the Castbar. The gates are open and mounts have been pouring out of the stables? Yes, news is starting to already get that light. No worries though, a full show comes to you with a closer look at combat pets, not battle pets, and a review of Karazhan. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Sunday, August 30th at approximately 4:45 Pacific Standard Time. I am your host, Michael Schwahn, and with me, as hopefully always, I have Evan.
Yeah, hopefully that is true. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, and Florian.
How's it going, guys?
It is going well. How are things going for you and as we close out summer?
They're going excellent. Finally escaped Texas, and now I'm relaxing on the East Coast, visiting my family. It's pretty great.
Are you just going to be going straight to Hawaii after your little visit there?
Yep, pretty much. Straight off to the island, and we'll see how that goes.
Hopefully well. And you already said we shouldn't be expecting any absence from you. Maybe, hopefully, possibly. Who knows?
Unless there's like a terrible circumstance, I think it'll be fine, you know. Unless we have like a Pacific Rim level disturbance.
You get there and hurricane just right off the bat.
I believe they call it a typhoon in the Pacific Ocean. But yeah.
No, I think it's a typhoon in the southern hemisphere.
What? I didn't
could
even
be.
I thought these were all different things.
Oh, hold on. No, a hurricane and a typhoon are the same exact thing, except different parts of the world. Hurricanes use the Atlantic Caribbean Sea and Central Northwest Pacific. There are typhoons in the Northwest Pacific. Oh, okay, in the Northeast Pacific, it's still a hurricane. Northwest Pacific, it's a typhoon.
Okay, so yeah. Basically, if it hits America, it's a hurricane, because we have to name everything ourselves. We have to have special names for everything, because America, and everywhere else just calls it a typhoon.
And we've forgotten about cyclones, which cyclones are also, Yeah.
Let me guess, a cyclone is just a tornado that's not in America.
No, that's a further geographic distinction. If it's in the South Pacific and the Indian Ocean, it's a cyclone. Wow, weird.
It's all... Anyway, Evan, how are things going for you on your end?
Going well. I'm getting used to a new job, and enjoying the weather that's cooling off over here for us. That's basically it. Been just hanging out with buddies and playing some video games, and mostly Heroes of the Storm for the past week. Getting my ranked matches underway because they just released a new season. Yeah, 20 matches you have to play before they give you a rank. And so I'm 2 away. Maybe I'll have them done by the end of the episode here.
Have you been keeping track of your record? What are you?
See, if I've done 18, I've probably won 6 of them. It's been really abysmal.
So you're basically just going to start at 50 and go from there? Well,
no, check it out. I think they are just putting me against these rank 1 seeders. So maybe I'll start like 15 or 16. Because even if you lose a match, I think it takes into account how well you did. So I'll be playing Sylvanas, and I'll top experience, contributed, I'll top hero damage, I'll top siege damage, and then we'll still lose, but it won't be as bad as if... I think my rank would increase less. I think that's a better for my rank than if I had won on the game but gone 2-18,
Sure. I don't know. I listened to a couple Heroes podcasts, and there have apparently been an outcry from the ranked community about how borked the system is still. I don't know if that's actually true, but I mean, people get upset over everything, so. My
biggest observation about the matchmaking is that my quick match games often are a lot more fun to play than my ranked games. I think people get pigeonholed into playing a specific role that they wouldn't normally choose. So ranked games can be a little bit more lopsided because people are out of their element. Whereas in a quick match game, you're always playing the exact player or the character you choose. I think it makes a big difference.
Sure. Also, for Blizzard, in terms of games, the Diablo Season 4 launched on Friday. I have been devouring that. Have you played a lot of it, right, Florian? Well, a previous season. Are you taking any interest in this one?
I'm definitely going to be jumping into this season. I just haven't created a character yet because I've been busy moving everything cross-country.
Sure.
But yeah, that's something I'm definitely going to be doing.
What about you, Evan? I know you're not necessarily a huge Diablo guy, but there's a lot of rewards that come with this one. Are you, I mean, you can get that sweet mount for Heroes of the Storm. You going to be jumping after it?
I hadn't given it an iota of thought. Is it going to be a lot of time invested to get that reward?
You have to get one character in Season 4 up to level 70, so assuming that if you either get help or just go at a decent pace, you probably will have to spend 6 hours maximum to get to that.
Do I have to buy the game?
Yes. Do you not own Diablo?
I've got Diablo 3 not installed at the moment. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember if I bought it or if I had Diablo 2. I definitely had Diablo 2. Yeah, I'm not sure. I might have picked it up in one of these past deals, or maybe I didn't. I really have played it that little. I think I had a trial account. I can check right now, though. Yeah,
well, it's a fantastic game. You should buy it. Give Blizzard more of your money. Be a tool. All right, into the news. Welcome to the news, everybody. Like I said in the intro, news is light, and it'll probably stay very light for quite some time. Yeah, don't be getting too excited because, well, until something else appears somewhere else in the webways, news is going to be not terribly thrilling right now. But we do still have some things. First off, mounts. So there have been a number of newly announced mounts, one of which I think people have been the most out of their pulling their hair out over. We're getting a moose mount. It's called the Grove Warden. It is going to be a purchasable mount from the shop. And most people are really excited about this because it was like, do you guys remember? It was like 6 years ago or something when Ghostcrawler was still working for Blizzard. He said that they were working on a moose mount, and we never got one. Well, we're finally getting our moose, and people are going out of their minds over this.
Yeah, I think it's a really attractive mount. I think it looks awesome, honestly.
No, it looks real cool, but I mean, I was just like, oh, okay, another mount. Cool story. Moving along, like, whereas there are some people that are like, oh my god, it's the greatest thing ever, moose.
So you say pulling their hair out because it's the greatest mount ever, not because Ghostcrawler said we're working on this 6 years ago.
Well, that could also be a very applicable complaint, but I mean, you can't really hold it against Ghostcrawler because, well, he hasn't been there in years.
Yeah, that's true. It's weird, and it kind of makes you think about the development time some of these key features go into these features. Do you think this was the same one he was referring to all that time ago?
I doubt it. I mean, I think it was just that, they wanted to make something different for the store, and they're like, why don't we make a moose? And they're like, sure, let's make a moose.
Considering all the changes to the graphics engine, I'm sure even if they had something in development, they would have had to almost scrap it entirely, and the only thing similar is the concept, or the only thing retained.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it really being like a real in-depth thought. I mean, maybe, but for the most part, I mean, stuff like this normally comes across to me like we were talking about with the toy versus non-toy. They just threw something at a dartboard and just went with whatever it stuck into.
Right.
But I don't know. I could be wrong. What about you, Florian? Are you stoking the moose? You ready?
Stoking the moose. That sounds like slang for something. I'm pretty. It looks like a pretty cool mount, and I imagine it's probably a new thing, not that same old mount. Simply because when you look at the Legion trailer, some of the new areas have mooses in them. So if there's a new moose mob, it's easy to make a mount out of that. All you do is just like throw a character on top of it, and you're good to go.
Saddle character.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the only thing they do. I think this moose actually flies with some kind of pixie dust.
Yeah, I think they called it dream dust or something like that. I don't know. Its feet glows blue, and then it flies through the air magically. Ooh.
I mean, sure, at this point, after all we've seen in a while, flying moose, okay, I'm not going to question it.
Yeah.
I wish it was that easy to make mounts. If it was as easy as just throwing a character on top of it, what kind of mounts would you guys want in the game? I would want a Devilsaur.
I still want a spider.
Oh, yeah.
Mana worm. Giant mana worm.
That seems like it wouldn't even be that hard, right?
Yeah.
Just scale it up to 300%. You can see all the polygons and stuff on it.
We still don't have a spider, which confuses me. Like, we have scorpions, which are very close, but they're not spiders. Maybe because the whole spiders are supposed to crawl up walls thing, but...
Maybe, yeah.
Which really, honestly, would... maybe, literally that could be something like, the technology isn't there yet thing, because they'd have to figure out how to make that happen. But, if it's in a zone where you can fly, would it be that big of a deal if you could walk up the wall?
Oh, yeah. Pose in the ceiling, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Plus, you'd be able to use them indoors. Well, maybe not, actually. I don't know.
I don't think it would matter. I mean, I think they could make a spider that could walk up walls, and it'd be real neat. So, Blizzard, do it, please.
There was a canonical, what's it called? From the Forgotten Realms in the Wizards of the Coast franchise for Dungeons & Dragons, there was a type of mount that underground elves used called a subterranean lizard that I think had 6 legs and could walk upside down and on walls. That would be pretty cool. We don't have any lizard mounts, so to speak, do we?
No. We should be able to ride a giant snake next.
Then again, is a Kodo a type of lizard? Are we going to field an opinion on that? Do we have a biologist here?
Kodos aren't, but there's the Mushin beasts.
Right.
Like
yeah,
you get from the Brawlers Guild. That's lizard-like.
Yeah, you're right. That is lizard-like. And you can get those also through the bloody coins on the Timeless Isle. And I think there's a third skin of that lizard mount that comes from a third source. Is it an achievement or perhaps even one of those random egg things that hatches from the Throne of Thunder, I'm thinking?
You mean the Mushin Beast?
Sure. Yeah, correct. I think there are 3 in the game at least.
Well, I can just go to, like, Petopia or wherever it is. The World of Warcraft.
Not exactly relevant. It'd be cool to have a frog mount that hops around.
Oh, God, that sounds disorienting, though, just because frog... let's see. Anyway, continuing on. Speaking of things that are new for us to ride, though, while I sit here and search for for Mushin Beast, the collector's edition of World of Warcraft Legion is going to come with a mount, because that's what they all come with, and it's going to be a Fellstalker.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this mount looks really cool. It has the face that's kind of like a bony face thing. It reminds me of the you know what it's called, the Forsaken's skeletal mounts, but then it's all Legionified. I think this is a mount that kind of comes alongside a new kind of Burning Legion demon mob monster. You know what I'm saying? So there's a Fellstalker monster coming out with the enemy forces, and then they're also giving us a version of this with as a mount, kind of like when Warlords of Draenor came out. We had the little skittering bug and the Thunderwing, and we got both of those as mounts as well, and those are just new beast models that were introduced along the new continent. So I like the idea of them just plucking some stuff out of the content and making it into a mount so that you can have a kind of themed mount, and I think that makes like a role players and people who like to have an immersive experience.
Well, and past that
makes them a little better, yeah.
With Miss Pandaria, though, those little skitter mounts are super relevant because they can walk on water. So, I mean, it used to be that, it was like, okay, well, if you aren't a Death Knight or a Warlock, you can't walk on. Well, I guess shamans can too with water walk. So if you weren't one of those, then you just didn't get to ride a mount on water, and well, now you can. So that's super cool. Anyway, I looked up the Mushin Beasts. There's 3 of them, like you said. One is from the Brawlers Guild, the Brawlers Burly Mushin Beast. There is the Ashhide Mushin Beast, which you get for the bloody coins from turning into a Yak Man from the Timeless Isle.
Yeah, those are the 2 I was able to name. What was the third one?
Son of Galleon, so the giant Mushin with the rockets on its back out in the Valley of the Winds, or something like that, in southern Pandaria. Valley of the Four Winds, I think is what it's called. Mm-hmm. He drops one.
Oh, very nice.
It can also be gotten on the black market auction house for those that are really curious about that.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we have to talk about is the Ironbound Wraith Charger and the Eclipse Dragonhawk. So these are really cool, like grayish, silverish, purplish mounts that are copies. The Ironbound Wraith Charger is a copy of the, what is it called? The Infernal Dreadsteed, the $30 mount from the shop that, is this crazy mechanical horse. And then the Eclipse Dragonhawk, well, all the Dragonhawks look the same. And these are rewarded from Time Walker dungeons. Doing Time Walker dungeons gives you Time Walker badges. You collect 5,000 of those badges, and you can buy one of these mounts.
So we were talking way back about a proper reward system for a Time Walking style dungeon arrangement.
Yeah,
collective tokens was like a currency model that we had kind of predicted would probably be the most likely, and then here we are with special exclusive mounts as rewards. And I think, I can't remember we ever came. I think we did not come to a consensus about what we thought was the most likely or the best way to do it. But here's what Blizzard decided to do. I think it's a pretty good solution. I think they've done well.
So you're saying Blizzard should just hire us now as advisors?
They might as well.
Yeah, totally. Florian, you down?
Yeah, sure. Why not? This is definitely a good start, though, to the time walking. I'm assuming they're going to add on top of it because 2 mounts isn't going to keep people interested for very long. But it's definitely a good start to getting actual rewards for time walking and making it feel like something that matters, as opposed to something that was just shoehorned in.
Next question, though: have either of you done the time walking yet?
I have time walked extensively.
Okay,
really? Have you?
How many badges on average, give or take, do you get per run?
Okay, I have not time walked post badge adding. Let me rephrase that.
Okay, because I haven't either, and I'm curious. Like, do you get complete a dungeon 5 badges? Oh no! Like the sheer number that I'm gonna have to get. So,
but then again, like I have said before, if I wanted Mimiron's head and had to run Ulduar over and over and over and over again, would I rather just keep on playing it for that chance to get it and play it on all my alts and run it 7 times a week, or have a steady kind of progression of one character where I collect these badges? Not sure if they're account wide, which would be really cool considering that the mount is account wide. I kind of like how I can see my progress towards the goal,
Sure.
It definitely feels a lot better to play that as opposed to the slot machine game you're playing. It's also, I feel it'll be a more engaging way to do it since, running the exact same raid or instance over and over again every week in a hope that it's a mount will drop gets really boring. Whereas with time walking, they kind of change it up a bit.
Well, and they can add and remove time walking dungeons and stuff like that. And this at least gives you a goal that you can see towards. Like, I mean, I believe you talked about it before, Evan, of that if you could see, like, well, if you just run Ulduar, 14 more times, after the 14th time, Mimiron's head will be yours. You're like, well, I'm just going to start, making those hash marks. As
right, exactly.
You can see it actually getting somewhere.
Yeah, and other players are gonna want that opportunity to have a random chance of getting it before their 1,000th run. The drop rate's represented by like 0.01 or or just 0.1 or 0.2 kind of thing. So on average, yeah, every 1 or 2,000, somewhere in between your 1,000 and 2,000th run, it'll drop. A lot of people are going to say, if I'm lucky at all, it'll drop on my 60th. And you're not going to get that with a token system, which might discourage some people. And some people are incredibly lucky. I think everybody who's ever farmed for Ashes of Alar has a friend who got it on the first try.
Well, I don't know anyone who's got it on the first try. I got it on my 20th run, which is still considered really good luck.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I can't really complain in that aspect. I can be that guy, and I do have the super lucky run of I got the Raven Lord mount from Anzu and Sethic Halls on my very first time in there when I was only level like 68 or something terrible.
Right.
But no, I mean, that's just one of the things that always happens. I mean, I've ran a couple of the places for dungeons like Utgard Pinnacle for the blue Proto Drake and Stone Core for the whatever Stone Drake that's in there. Drake, yeah. I've ran those way too many times because, especially Stone Core, because, well, that one you don't have the weekly lockout. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So it just goes back and forth depending on the direction that you're looking.
Were you going to say something about that last point about the friend who did on the first try, Florian?
Not about that, but related to the 1,000 or 2,000 runs. I mean, I understand that MMOs are designed to be sort of a loot treadmill, and there's a slot machine effect. But if you have to do something over 1,000 times to get the rewards you want, at that point, something's probably wrong. I mean, like that 0.01 or 0.02 drop chance, that might have made sense back when those Dungeons and Raids first came out. But now it's just, because now the content is no longer challenging. It's no longer fun to run through. So at this point, that low drop rate is just annoying and really doesn't need to be that bad. So a badge system to replace that would be far superior.
Yeah, but I guess in every single system of rewarding a player for doing something, be it a mount or gear or quest rewards and that kind of thing, I think it's best to have a variety of methods to obtain those rewards. I have been pretty lucky with random world drop epics, especially back in vanilla when it really mattered if you got an epic world drop like a Shadow Blade and could sell that for gold that you need for your mount. That was ludicrously expensive. You like having the slot machine kind of thing. It's a really nice surprise, like if it happens the way it happened to Michael, where you get a super rare mount just by having been in the right place at the right time and rolled the dice the right way. I also like that you have some relief from that system where you have some of these reputation grinds to get mounts. Just for example, that gives you a kind of like a progression bar. This is how close you are towards getting the reward you want. I don't think an MMO that had exclusively one system or exclusively the other would be satisfying for the vast majority of players.
I can see your point there. Yeah, it certainly makes sense. It just, I don't know. I don't feel like it works too well for old content, but I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree on that.
Any chance they would be more effective if you took all of the mounts out of the old raids and put them in not just a black market, but some other way to obtain them? Would you like to be able to purchase all of the old raid mounts using these same Time Walker tokens that we're using to purchase these brand new mounts?
Well, that's a slippery slope. Because that causes people to no longer want to go to those old raids, because one of the few draws the old content has are the mounts and pets you can get there. I think they still need to stay there in the old raids. Just I don't know. There just needs to be some way to get them that isn't highly improbable RNG. But this could just be me talking because I've done a million runs to try to get Invincible and I still don't have it, and I'm pretty salty about that.
Well, what we had actually talked about before, and not just old raids, like we had talked about tying in Time Walker and old raids and all that. Instead of having Time Walker badges, just having a separate currency that it comes from older content or revamped content like Time Walker dungeons or anything like that. And so, like, let's say you can get, the tokens, you can get a certain number. You think of it kind of like Valor points, where there was a cap that you could get each week. And I understand that frustrated some people, but the reason that Valor point cap frustrated people is because they needed Valor points to get, like, rating gear. Whereas a cap on... this is not meant to be a derogatory term. A cap on casual points... is a little bit different. So, like, let's say you go into a dungeon, go and do an old raid, each boss drops like 5 casual badges. And then you can do a Time Walker dungeon, and it'll drop like 40 casual badges. And you can go do this and this and this and this, and it all drops a bunch of casual badges. And you can get like 1,000 a week. And then not only is Mimron's Head available in Ulduar, you can also buy it for like 10,000 casual badges. I think that would be a really good system, because you could get that excitement of, dude, it just dropped for me, woot! And then your badges could still be there for you and go towards something else.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like a combination of systems. I like when you have more than one route towards a given reward. Then again, some things seem to me like they're so exclusive and so cool that I want having that reward to indicate that I did this one specific thing, which is, like, for example, the gladiator mounts.
Right.
There shouldn't be more than one way to get the gladiator mounts, unless you count rated battlegrounds or arenas,
Well, that's a different thing, because the gladiator mount is a question of you have to be very good at what you do. You have to be a skilled PvPer and consistently PvP to get that. Whereas a lot of these older mounts, Mimron's Head, yeah, it can be difficult to get, but only because you have to run the same raid over and over and over again. It's not a difficult raid anymore. You can pretty much just sleepwalk it, slamming your hands against your keyboard from time to time. So it's not challenging, engaging content anymore. It's just a question of how much tedium are you willing to put up with.
How much anime do you have to watch?
Pretty much.
Tedium. How much tedium do you have to put up with? Yeah, it's like you can get a whole lot of mounts, an enormous amount of mounts, just through putting up with a lot of tedium.
In reality, though, isn't everything in Warcraft just putting up with a lot of tedium?
I guess
Hey, we don't talk about that.
Okay.
Gotta maintain the illusion that this game is fun.
This is all in all, though, these mounts are a step in the right direction. I think it's something that we can agree on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that they're introducing mounts, and I like that they're doing it to reward Time Walkers, especially.
Okay, moving along. Evan, take us into it.
Let's see. This was from the WoW Armory. I believe this was officially released. Statistics about character gender data specifically. Was this the only thing they released as far as data? Races and genders.
Well, there was item level breakdown and gender breakdown.
I think this gender breakdown is really fascinating because I just like looking at the numbers. We have 2 data sets here, one from 2011, one from today. As far as class representation, monks are still only 5% of all players, and that's definitely the very, very lowest out of everybody. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. I like looking at these race decisions because, for the most part, we talked about this, there are racial differences. If you're doing PvE, playing, racial bonuses aren't really going to factor in too much. I think they shine more to separate effectiveness of races in PvP. But still, if you look at it this way, people are choosing their race based on aesthetics almost entirely and their class choice. Here are the numbers. 20% of all characters are human, which is 1/5. 20% is 1/5, and there are quite a few races to choose from. Very much a smaller fraction than a fifth. Not too surprising, considering that humans can be the most classes. Is that right? Is Blood Elves up there with them as well?
No, the races that can be the most classes is dwarves, which can be everything but druids, and trolls, which can be everything but paladins.
Okay, well there you go. So we can talk a little bit about what draws a player to make a human character when you have a choice of 11 different races. Or is
Well,
it 13
let's
races
be honest
now?
here. There's going to be some people out there that are like, the humans are only on top because of their racial.
The racials have changed over time, though, and we can look back at historic data and say that. Oh, no, we can't. They don't have character distribution by type from 2011, do they? Oh, yeah, here we go. Gender by race? No. Not seeing it. Not seeing the data I want. But we do have some other prepared data points for you. The lowest, the second two highest represented classes are Blood Elves at 14% of the total population, and Night Elves at 11.5%. Blood Elves and Night Elves, I guess, are two of the more charismatic races as far as tall, dark, and handsome. Blood Elves, of course, aren't too dark, but they all are tall and handsome, except for the females who are a little bit tinier. Everybody else is below 10%. The lowest two races are Goblins, followed by Gnomes, the least represented. Gnomes, the least popular class. Why do you guys think that is? Is it because they're short and oh so puntable?
Almost certainly.
I think gnomes because they have to have a relation, a kinship with Millhouse Manastorm. And no one wants to be akin to that lowly gnome.
That's true, maybe.
Lowly?
I've come up with 3 awards to give out for the different races. To just exhibit their excellence in getting players to pick them for their mains and everything. The first award I want to give out, and this is based on changes in gender populations between 2011 and 2015. The Recruiting That Booty award goes to the Draenei. They started off in 2011 having more females than males. In 2015 now, there are far more females than males. I think word has gotten around what it's like to play a female Draenei character, and everybody's hopping on that train. So Recruiting That Booty goes to them. The stopped kidding ourselves. The finally came to terms with our hidden struggles goes to the Blood Elves. Upon release 2011, male Blood Elves were more represented than female Blood Elves, but now everybody has stopped kidding themselves, and now female Blood Elves are much more represented than male Blood Elves. Let's face it. What were you going for trying to play a male Blood Elf to begin with anyway? So the finally stopped kidding ourselves award goes to them. The Ancestors Tradition award goes to Tauren, whose the ratio of male to female Tauren in 4 years has changed 0.2%. That's a microscopic difference. So back at the amount of female Taurens to male in 2011, almost identical to today. I'm going to base that on really strong family traditional values, or maybe an ironclad, oppressive, kind of eugenic movement throughout the Tauren leadership to make sure that only a certain ratio of male to females are born at any one time. That's a little bit dark. I'm going to just chalk it up to coincidence for my own humanity's sake. So ancestor tradition is our little more innocuous explanation for why that's gone down that way.
Okay. Back to the first bullet point, though, and I want to ask you a question, Evan, since you have the highest level monk amongst the group here. Monks are still only represented by 5% of the players. The most recent class before that is being Death Knights, and Death Knights, there's plenty of them all over the place. Why do you think it is that monks are so underrepresented by the community?
Well, I want to rule out the fact that monks are just the newest class and most people are stuck in their ways playing their mains. But then we look at the number of Pandaren, and the Pandaren representation is much higher than that 5%. So it's not that people aren't willing to make a new character. It's maybe just that the monk class themselves aren't attracting a whole lot of players. I mean, when you think about it, Windwalker monks, did they do a much better job than rogues or feral druids? I'm not entirely sure that they are. They might have been pretty popular in PvP, but still it's hard to explain. Mistweaver monks, if you want to play a healer, are you going to choose a monk? I'm going to say probably not. Mistweaver monks have had their ups and downs, especially in Miss Pandaria. So I think most healers are going to choose not to play Mistweaver Monk, and I think people who want to help their guild out by playing a healer are going to be referred to other classes before a guild member first or suggests they make a monk at all. And thirdly, the brewmasters. I think in PvP, brewmasters are a really strong class, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. If you didn't realize by the time you hit max level that shuffle was critical to tanking on a monk.
And amazing.
Yeah.
Can we just mention that it's amazing?
They've reworked it since Mr. Pandaria to make it less critical. If you don't have shuffle up, you are not paper thin. But that certainly was the case in the beginning of Mr. Pandaria. If you let your shuffle fall off, if you didn't build up your shuffle as fast as possible using Blackout Kick when you started a fight, you were going down. And I think a lot of people got discouraged because, if you are just smashing buttons on a warrior, you still have all that mitigation. If you aren't hitting the right buttons in the right order on your monk, you don't have that mitigation. And when people are dying over and over again and getting yelled at for playing a crappy tank class, maybe people have the wrong impression, then that's not going to attract very many players either. So I think monks are attracting an eclectic crowd and a more hardcore crowd. I think it really takes a hardcore healer to want to play a Mistweaver, especially if you want to do something like Stance to the Crane. I mean, that's like a really fun way to heal, but you have to be 10 times better than that paladin in order to out-heal him with the same level of gear,
Sure. So, Florian, my next question is directed to you now. With this comparison, everything we have here, Death Knights are not underrepresented. All monks are. Do you think that Demon Hunters are just going to just immediately have like 8% of the player base? Or more?
I'm going to say more than 8%, definitely. Because, it's going to be the same situation at the beginning of Wrath, because, when they introduced Monk, it was a new class, and a new class is adorable. But Death Knight was a hero class. The Demon Hunter is going to be a hero class. They've got a ton of lore. They've got a cool starting area. They start at a higher level. And, Monk is a fairly, how should I put it, a very vanilla class. Not that it was in vanilla WoW, but it feels kind of vanilla-ish. Like it's a standard RPG class.
Sure, it could have been here the
Demon
entire
Hunter
time.
And the Death Knight, not so much. Exactly. So the Death and Demon Hunter, they stand out more. They're more unique and specific to WoW. So I think that draws a lot more players toward those classes.
Okay.
It also doesn't hurt that elven races are quite popular, and the Demon Hunter is either a Night Elf or a Blood Elf.
Sure. Probably definitely doesn't hurt it at all. So, one more question for both of you now. And this is not exactly concurrent with the news, just something I wanted to ask you. This will now be, so we had vanilla, we got everything out of vanilla. And then come Burning Crusade, we got Draenei and Blood Elves with no new classes. Wrath of the Lich King, we got no new races, but we did get the Death Knight. Come Cataclysm, we didn't get any new races, new classes, but we got Worgen and Goblin. Miss Pandaria brought us a new class and a new spec with Pandaren and Monk. Warlords of Draenor, we didn't get anything, and Legion is just bringing us a new class with the Demon Hunter. So, at this point, what do you think, and obviously this is way far in the future, what would be next? A new race?
Logically speaking, I would say probably a race, because most times when you get an expansion, so far every expansion with the exception of Warlords of Draenor, has brought us either a new class or a new race. So since we're getting a new class this time, I feel like new race would be appropriate. But at this point, considering how many races have already been brought into the Horde and Alliance, I think it would be really hard to add more of them. I'm not really sure what Blizzard would do at this point.
Do you think at all, or so standard terrible questionnaire, do you strongly agree, somewhat agree, neutral, somewhat disagree, strongly disagree, that World of Warcraft gets a strong breath of fresh air and gets a little bit of new wind kicked into it from new players or returning players when it comes to a new class or race. Do you find that to be true at all?
So you're saying whether an expansion with a new race or class
helps a little bit.
Attracts new players?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking whether or not a new race or class attracts new players more so than a new expansion that doesn't have a new race or class?
Correct.
Yeah, definitely. But go on, Florian, your point. You said it's fairly likely.
It definitely does, especially a new class, because a new class gives new gameplay abilities, because I know you guys have definitely felt this when you play a class for too long, like, especially years and years. Eventually, you get bored playing that class. You've mastered its mechanics. You can do the rotations in your sleep. It's just not that interesting anymore. You want to move on to something else. So, when you see the new advertisements up and it's like new class, Demon Hunter, you're like, oh, I think I might go resubscribe to WoW because that looks like it might be fun and interesting. As for new races, I don't think they add as much because the races are technically different from each other because they have different racial abilities and stats, but let's be perfectly honest, it's mostly just an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, although I do like experiencing the new racial content that comes in the form of a starting zone. It's not so compelling as to shake up the entirety of endgame in the world at large, PvP and all that like a class does. So class is definitely more effective than races at bringing in new players, and classes and races are more effective than just the new content of a new expansion, which every new expansion brings,
Sure. One more thing. We didn't mention it previously. It kind of just slipped under the radar on a lot of the news things, and I didn't even throw it in the show notes, but it is confirmed that Legion will have with it a boost to level 100. So, yay?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Maybe yay, maybe not. It's how should I put it? With my personal experience with the boost, having boosted the level 90 Warlock up to level 100, I don't think it's a good idea because even, I've been playing WoW for 9 years, but I've never played a Warlock before WoD, but even with all my WoW experience, I could not effectively play a Warlock when I hit level 100. So I really think the boost is more counterproductive than anything else.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna play next bumper now.
Right.
Welcome to A Closer Look, everybody. A Closer Look is a small section we do where we take something in Warcraft and give it a little bit more thought. And this week we are going to be talking about combat pets. And this is not battle pets. This is combat pets. So think of like what your hunter has next to him. There's lots of these. When Evan, I think it was Evan, right, that brought up the topic to me. Maybe it was Florian. I don't know. One of you brought up the topic to me. I initially thought he was talking about the little battle pets, and I did not want to do a closer look on those, at least not yet. And then they're like, no, like all the pets that fight with you. And I was like, oh. And then as I thought about it, there's a lot of these. More than I initially expected because, well, you just don't necessarily really think of them right off the bat. The first one, we're going to go ahead and knock the probably what most people would consider the most known, the most easiest to associate with hunters and their companion pets. They have always had pets, right? They never didn't. It used to be that you had to get to like level 10 and then you get a quest to go tame one.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting thing, though, is that they've always been the companion pet class, yet now, currently, they have a talent that gets rid of their pet, and come Legion, the marksman hunters will not have pets at all.
Right, and this is kind of an expansion on the idea of the lone wolf talent that they gave hunters. I think a lot of people liked lone wolf at the beginning of the Worlds of Draenor, but I'm not sure if it panned out exactly how Blizzard wanted to. So this is going to be a completely different direction. You do not get a pet anymore. If you're a marksmanship hunter, it takes the burden of choice out of it entirely. Plus, it helps to separate the identity of the 3 hunter specs by a whole lot. I think this does a whole lot of good for them in that respect.
But now we actually need to talk about the pets. And I'm pretty sure, well, hunters have been nicknamed huntards because, well, they either shoot the boss or their pet goes off and does something completely just, why would that happen? You've had experiences akin to this, yes?
Yeah, when you have AI involved and you have keybinds involved, you come up with a lot of funny situations, and those pets can run really fast. It's the only kind of way you're going to accidentally facepull the entire group, save, not paying attention while your character's on auto run. But it's super easy, especially if you have a keybind for your pet attack, to accidentally pull an entire group of mobs. It's really kind of funny when it happens, and I always laugh about it because I know it's easy. I know it's easy to let that happen. I don't get too bent out of shape, but people who never played a hunter maybe don't realize how tenuous your control is over your pet, and are less forgiving.
Well, and I think it's kind of hard to bring that down on hunters like that. It does happen from time to time. It does suck. But the other thing is, though, is that, like, hunters, while they are the most played class, there are more hunters than anything else. A lot of people consider them to be the easiest to play class because, well, you just shoot things. They're probably the epitome of Blizzard's entire slogan of easy to learn, difficult to master. Hunters can get insane if they get their micromanaging down, especially when it comes to their pet.
No, this is a good point to bring up because micromanagement of your pet is something you can completely ignore, or you can really invest a whole lot of time and energy into mastering. What examples of pet hunter micromanagement come to mind when you think of it, Michael?
So I have a hunter, and I was trying to learn how to master said hunter in Siege of Orgrimmar because I loved that period of time. I know I know we had Siege of Orgrimmar for way too long, but it was really a enjoyable time for me. And going through that, I leveled up a whole bunch of characters to level 90 because we had lots of time. And I was like, okay, well, how do you be a really good hunter? Because being a good hunter isn't that difficult. Being a really good hunter takes a little bit more. And your pet has a lot of hunter pets out of everything we talk about here has the highest level of control. You can tell them where to go, what to attack. They also have their own abilities that you can control if you want. And so the guides and stuff and people that I was watching on YouTube, the level of which that you can complicate your rotation essentially with a hunter pet is insane because there's depending on your pet, they have different abilities, and some of those abilities may like increase their damage or their attack speed. And it's like, okay, well, if you just have your pet set to like aggressive and you don't give it any commands, and like let's say there's 2 bosses, which, you know, this is real common. Like let's say it's like Twin Ogron, or, you know, when Tectus splits or anything like that. You don't necessarily, depending on the boss, obviously. Sometimes you're like, I need to stop all DPS on, you know, one of the 3 the fallen defenders in Siege of Orgrimmar. You know, I need to stop DPS because I don't need him to blah 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 blah. Anyway, often your pet will just attack whatever it is you are attacking, and a lot of people just set their pets to auto attack what I'm attacking, and automatically use your abilities whenever they're on cooldown or whenever they see appropriate. Just lets the AI take over. But if you go in and you start taking over for the pet, you actually can get a drastic increase on your DPS because your pet's abilities your pet stats are based a little bit off of your own, like their damage, like especially for Beast Mastery. Kill Command is actually based off of your agility rather than anything to do with the pet, even though the pet is the one that does the damage. And the pets can get buffs the same way you can. So there would be a lot of times where you don't want them to just use their, I gain, such attack speed or whatever for such amount of time. You want to time it the same way that you want to time, like, your big cooldowns, like with when a trinket pops. Your pet has that same level of intricacy to it. And with multiple bosses, you can be like, no. I lose DPS if you switch targets, because I just get to start shooting something else. You have the melee problem of I have to run over here and start biting this thing. So if you just have it on auto, do whatever you want to do and attack what I'm attacking, you lose DPS because it runs wherever from, especially like hunters are really good at ads because they have barrage, they have multi-shot, they have all these things that deal with ads. But if they switch targets and go to attack ads, their pet is going to run to go attack those ads. So
you control your pet's aggro individually. You say, I'm going to switch to all these targets. You just stick to this guy and don't worry about losing time running around. And so, does that mean you have your pet on passive the entire time?
I don't remember because... Like most people, I looked at all this and read all this and went, that's way too complicated for me. I'm not a Mythic Raider. I don't want to worry about that. It's like, because I do not anymore, but I used to heroic what became Mythic Raid, and you have to really know your class inside and out really well. And I was already doing heroic raiding on 3 of my characters, my Death Knight, my Priest, and my Shaman. And I just did not want to try to add another file into that already cramped cabinet in my brain. Now, do you have a hunter, Evan?
Yeah, I got a hunter that was maxed for Miss Pandaria, and I think he was only level 92 or 93 for this expansion.
And did you play him much in Miss Pandaria?
Yeah, to the extent that I did up to about normal mode, which was the old flex. I did flexible Teach of Orgrimmar with him. So a good way through.
Okay. So, where's my bumper? Take us into the next one. Mages.
I played Classic Mage. One of the coolest things about Mage than a Mage pet, which is the Water Elemental, it's only available to Frost spec, so kind of like Hunters have one spec that removes their pet entirely. Mages have one spec that gives them a permanent pet, and you get it at level 10. This is the class that taught me how to macro my pet's abilities and allowed me to use, or kind of forced me to use, the most micromanagement. I don't know if mages still have this, but they used to have an old talent called Shatter, meaning if your target was frozen in the ground, you could deal double damage or guaranteed critical or something against your targets there. And your water elemental had a kind of a frost nova that was ranged. You could place it kind of wherever you wanted, called freeze. And that's not the kind of thing that you wanted to go down and click your pet bar to place. It's something that you wanted to be able to place and combo with your Ice Lance or your Cone of Cold right at that exact moment. Now, granted, please understand my disclaimer. I haven't played my mage in about 2 expansions, so if this is no longer relevant, then just use it as an analogy or as a for instance, or
we do
just get
know
the general
that they
point
still
out of
have,
here.
we do know that they still have water elementals, though.
Yeah, I don't know about that AoE Cone of Cold or AoE Frost Nova that you can cast at a range, but at any rate, this is a really cool ability. It really complemented the water, the Frost Mage itself, and being able to place that, that Frost Nova somewhere right before a Frostbolt landed, or just to snare your enemies to keep them from getting to you in conjunction with Frost Nova itself, was a really cool kind of interplay. Much in the same way that the Frost Mage is a caster, the Water Elemental itself is also a caster, compared to the Hunter class, which all of their pets are mostly melee. So instead of having a melee pet that can kind of tank for you as a Hunter, or deal sick DPS, or has cool abilities that you can use in PvP, a mage pet is mostly just like a companion caster that hangs out with you, attacks from a distance, and then has some abilities that give you a little bit more crowd control, which is the Frost Mage's bread and butter. So I think this is a really good complement to the class.
It also is the best thing to have when you're leveling a mage. Leveling a mage can be pretty rough. You're squishy, and a mage doesn't... It's not like a priest. It doesn't have a healing ability on it. So Water Elemental really helps, as it's something else that can really attract enemies to not be beating on your face.
Right, yeah, it's also good for some protection there. I just think it's a really cool, useful pet, and I think it's a really powerful pet to get at such a low level, and definitely helps you throughout the entire game. I think its usefulness drops off a little bit as just an auto-attacking DPS increase. I think, like, for instance, if you're raiding and you have the Water Elemental just casting water bolts or something over and over and over again, it's kind of a boring way to increase your DPS, and of course the freeze doesn't come in handy quite the same way.
Does it do no damage?
I don't really think so. I don't think it's doing so much damage that you want to put it on cooldown or keep it on cooldown for your boss rotation. Now, and again, I'm not entirely positive this is even something that exists anymore. I can check that out on my mage while we're talking, though.
Sure. And what level is your mage now?
64.
Okay. Higher than me or Florian have.
That's kind of impressive.
For those that are curious, though, Florian is restarting his computer. He's having internet conundrums. He was supposed to take the next one, but I will go ahead and jump on the next one, and that's Death Knights. Death Knights, they have two options for pets. It's a ghoul no matter what, but if you are unholy, you get to keep the ghoul as an everlasting pet, such as hunter pets or the mage water elemental. Up until recently, the other specs would get the ability to summon the ghoul for a very short amount of time. I think it was like 30 seconds. Now, I have only really played Blood and Frost, Evan. Does the ghoul, besides being able to monsterify it and make it all big and stompy, does it have any other relevant use in Unholy?
Yeah, absolutely. It has a stun, it has an extra damage attack, and it has a leap. And actually, I think the damage attack is called Claw. And if your beast is transformed, then all of his abilities also transform, so that you get a stun, which is the most important thing because it means crowd control and is useful in PvP. Again, I'm going to have to double check my facts on that. I did verify that the Water Elemental still has Freeze and Water Bolt as its two abilities, which is good. But yeah, I think that it has 2 or 3 abilities on your Ghoul and Unholy, and then those abilities are interactable and castable on purpose if you want to, and then also they change, I believe, based on Dark Transformation. Otherwise, an Unholy Permanent Ghoul plays a whole lot like a Beastmaster Hunter. You're using your abilities as a character, as a player, to get stacks of your Frenzy or whatever, and then when you reach 5 stacks, you can use it to transform your pet. And I think as a Beastmaster, you can make your pet go into a Frenzy. Let's see. Yeah, so my Ghoul on my Death Knight doesn't have a dang pet bar because... oh, there it is. Because I have a custom UI, which I recommend for everybody as long as you keep up with it and don't play a character you haven't played in 3 or 4 months ever. Claw and Leap are the 2 basic abilities. You also have Huddle, which makes him tankier. He doesn't do anything, but he'll take 50% damage incoming for 10 seconds. And then all 3 of these abilities have a different action inside Dark Transformation. So Claw will do AoE damage rather than just on a single target. Huddle will release it. He'll still reduce damage by half for 10 seconds, but he won't be incapacitated during. And then Leap will interrupt spellcasting and immobilize a target, as opposed to just teleport to the target. So a little bit of extra interaction through Dark Transformation, which makes Dark Transformation a pretty cool mechanic that lets you interact with your pet on a deeper level that, again, is easy to learn but hard to master.
Let's see if we can't get Florian back in here. Let's see if he is with the living. Okay, so I do not have a warlock. Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And while we're going between these different pet classes, it's kind of a good idea to talk about pet naming and how the naming your pet is different between different classes. Or you can save that for the end if you like, because we've covered all the three classes where naming your pet's drastically different, right?
Well, can you name water elementals?
No, I think it's always just called water elemental.
Okay, it's like I think the only pet that you can actually name yourself is the hunter pets.
Hunter, exactly. And then as a unholy death knight or as a regular death knight, every time you summon a new ghoul and raise the dead, it has a different name that is like 2 words in random combination, like rot, chewer, or bone claw man, the kind of thing. There's a list of little tiny words, and they just take 2 of them and put them together.
Fester gut. No,
exactly.
That's the guy from ICC. But yeah, every time you get a new one.
So it's cool. It's like you have your ghoul and it's named something, and it follows you around until it expires. Or I think even if you log out and log back in, and you have the same ghoul on as an undead, a holy death knight, they'll have the same name until you get a new one or until it dies. Warlocks, however, which we'll go into now, once you summon your Voidwalker, for instance, or your imp for the first time, for the entire life of that character, you'll always summon the same imp, which I think is kind of cool and kind of immersive. It really goes to show that when your imp dies, he doesn't really die, he just goes back to the Twisting Nether. And when you summon an imp from the Twisting Nether, you have that contract with that one imp that you learned how to summon back at level 1.
Wasn't there something there for a little while that there was a way or a method or something that you could change your imp's name?
Ooh, that sounds like hacks. That sounds like lead hacks to me.
Like, maybe I'm just delusional, but I don't know. Like I said, I could just be delusional, but I feel like there was something there for, like, in one of the expansions or something, where there was a way that you could change your imp's name.
I'm thinking that maybe if there was this talent in the 4th row or so called Grimoire of Supremacy, where all of your summoned pets were an upgraded version of themselves, for example, a Beholder rather than a Fel Hunter.
Sure.
And I think the Beholder's going to have a different name than your Fel Hunter had, of course. They have a different naming convention, but it going back to the non-Grimoire of Supremacy made you summon a new Fel Hunter for the first time, for example. I'm not entirely sure, but that's just me grasping at straws.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just feel like there was something. And of course, though, I mean, really the only thing we're ever hoping for is for our imp's name to be Nipple.
Nipple. I'd never heard of that, but that sounds really cool.
It's Niple. So, I mean, it's technically not spelled correctly, but it is Nipple.
Let's see. I'm popping on my Warlock right now. Just the Warlock pets all have their abilities. There's a really big diversity. I think there's more of a diversity in Warlock pets than any other class. Like we were saying, Hunter pets are all going to be basically a melee pet. I'm not sure about the Flying Serpent, whether or not
Why is that, by the way? Why are all Hunter pets melee?
I think because you have to tame a beast, and all beasts are not magical by design, kind of. Whereas with the Hunter, you have the Imp, the Castbar bolts, and that's an ability of the Imps. It's not just a melee attack. It's a ranged melee attack,
Sure. Still seems a little odd.
I can't think of any Hunter pet that they would tame that would have a ranged attack. I can't think of any beasts that have a ranged attack in general, except maybe the Thunder Lizards. All they do is cast Lizard Bolt, which is a really funny name for an ability, over and over again. And certain Hunter pets have abilities like that let them do damage at a range, like the Cloud Serpent. If that's the right name for that thing, definitely does. But they can't spam that ability over and over again like a Water Elemental can spam Water Bolts as its primary means of dealing range damage,
Sure.
So I'm not sure. A cool ranged Hunter pet might be some kind of spitting lizard, or some bird that can fling sharp quills, or or just like one of these magical kind of pets that you kind of find in the wild in this crazy world that we play this game in. Hydras, I think, are another thing that do a poison spit from a distance, but I think they also have a regular melee attack that's a melee range thing, you know?
So now my question is, though, because I don't have I think my highest level warlock I have is level 17. What all are you able to actually summon at this point? Because you can summon the blueberry, which is what is he actually called?
Voidwalker.
Voidwalker. You can summon the Fel Hunter, like we already talked about, because it's becoming a mount. You can summon the Beholder, which, what does the Beholder do? I never see anybody use it.
The Beholder?
Yeah.
The Beholder's a souped-up version of the Fel Hunter.
Okay.
And it does the Devour magic kind of thing. It does the mana burn type of thing. I can figure it out.
What is the souped-up version of the Fel Hunter, the dog?
That is the Fel Hunter comes. It's called an Observer in this game. The dog is the Fel Hunter. It turned into the Observer, which is like that Brogok guy from that dungeon with the Blood Furnace, right? The Succubus transforms into that Shavara, which is that four-armed woman. I remember her most from the
Black Temple.
Alcatraz, personally.
Sure.
Just because those two bosses, you fight one after the other, and they taunt one another. I think that's really cool. Voidwalker, of course, becomes a Void Lord, which is just the same. Imp becomes a Fel Imp, which is basically the same.
Sure.
You know, so just regular kind of souped up versions of the same thing. I've just selected that talent, so I'm going to check out the abilities of the Observer here.
So now, though, you are able to take a talent, correct, to summon the Felguard and the Infernal permanently instead of just a temporary pet?
Now, that is a Demonic Servitude, which is level 100 talent. I'm not level 100 on my Warlock yet, but yeah, Demonic Servitude lets you maintain control over your greater demons, and definitely Doomguard and Infernal are those two that it lets you do. So I think I'm not entirely sure if this is a really popular talent for people to use.
It's cool. Oh, what is the warrior that walks around with you? The Doomguard, is that what he's called?
Terror Guard, let me see.
He's one of the ones that you can summon normally. He's your melee DPS pet.
Oh, the one that specifically for Demon Hunter Warlocks, I feel. Because that was the big thing back in a couple of expansions ago where a Demon Hunter Warlock gets this Doomguard pet. I think that was done away with. Jeez, I'm going to... Hopefully we get hate mail. Let's just start saying stuff that's entirely wrong just to get a little bit of fan mail.
If we just say everything incorrect, they will surely mail us and tell us that we are wrong.
Yeah, it's the only 4 pets that I can summon are the Fel Imp, the Void Lord, the Observer, and the Shavara. Now, with that one talent, I can, of course, get off the talent, and now I can have the Imp, the Voidwalker, the Fel Hunter, and the Succubus. The 2 greater demons are the Doomguard, which assaults the target with Doom Bolts, and the Infernal, which impacts the ground for 3,000 damage, and will, I think, probably has an immolation. Let's see. Let me summon him right quick. A little meteor. There we go. Cool. Aren't you adorable? And the Doomguard guy, I think, was kind of done away with, but that doesn't make any sense because I do remember exactly what you're talking about, and I'm wondering, where did that guy go? I wish we had Florian here because he's our Warlock expert. We can move on in the meantime, maybe.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll add him to. He hasn't messaged us yet. Maybe catastrophic failure is becoming a regular occurrence for him. In other news, though, we'll move on to the next one, and that is shamans. I am our resident shaman. I played a shaman way too much come Mists of Pandaria, and they don't have any permanent pets. They don't have anything like we've already talked about. We're going to be going into the short duration help me friend in terms of pets that we are going to be discussing. Now, Shamans, though, the reason that they are next, because they almost had a permanent pet. So the ones that you will see most common from shamans is the elementals. You will see most commonly the fire elemental, which is their damage pet, you big fiery molten guy that shoots flames. And then you will have the earth elemental. And he's the big stony guy, and he just stomps, and he's also very aggro centric. So he's what you need he's really good for leveling up. It's like, oh man, I'm getting beat on by this rare spawn or whatever. Here, earthy, you tank him for me. You can also
really fun. Yeah, also really fun to cast that guy when your entire group is going to hell in a handbasket, and your tank dies and your healer dies, and you're just trying to keep everybody else alive.
Man, maybe shamans are the ultimate utility class. It's like, oh man, this 5-man's going bad. Drop the earth elemental, pop heroism, ascend. Blah, it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was, for originally in Warlords, one of their level 100 talents was going to be a permanent pet. It was going to be I don't remember which, was it the Storm Elemental, I believe is what it was called. Right. They decided that they didn't want to create another class that had a permanent pet, and so they changed it to be it's called like a Torrent Elemental now, or like something like, maybe it's still called a Storm Elemental. And it is a temporary pet, but it absorbs damage and deals damage and heals, and it does a bunch of it does a little bit of everything. I personally haven't seen anybody use it, but it is another option for them. Shamans, though, it's really cool because the pets, while maybe the fire elemental's damage is akin to having the permanently out imp for a warlock in terms of damage, but it always just feels awesome when you drop the fire elemental. You're like, boom, summon this giant thing of fire, and then it goes away, and then you're back to being boring and just shooting lightning bolts. But it just because it's one of those big DPS cooldowns, it just feels real good.
Yeah, definitely, and I like the level play that gets a little bit deeper when you think about taking the glyph that makes the duration half as much, but you can cast it twice as often to customize it based on the fight that you're doing. Say there's a lot of movement, and I'm not going to get all 10 minutes out of, or how long does it last? 5 minutes or so out of my fire elemental. So let me take this glyph, and then I can just cast it more often because I will get 2.5 minutes, no problem. But
sure.
You're forgetting feral spirits, which are a really important pet for the enhancement class, and I think you can reduce the cooldown on that ability through doing storm strikes, and then they can do things like heal you through their damage, really big burst cooldown for arenas especially, and then just integral to their DPS rotation in general in PvE. I think it's cool because you summon 2 of them, not just 1. I think you have a talent that will turn you into a spirit wolf when you summon your spirit wolves, so you're a little pack of spirit wolves, and that's just quite adorable when you think about it. And it's iconic to the class too, whereas the elementals, although are iconic, aren't as, I guess, intimate as you can imagine the spirit wolves would be with their enhancement shaman.
Sure. Maybe,
so, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a very iconic ability. I personally have only played Enhancement Shaman for like a month, and that's because I just wanted to try it out, and I was still raiding on my, way too over-geared Shaman in Pandaria, and I was like, well, I might as well just start assembling, enhancement gear, because I already had full-on restoration and elemental, so I was like, whatever, I'll just start accumulating this up. And then I tried enhancement, I didn't like it. Feral spirits, though, it did still have that real good feeling, though.
This is the kind of ability that I put on my thumb button on my mouse right in the side of it, because I want to squeeze my mouse and go in there, and I'm usually charging with my W key, and it's like those are, if I ever have a badass ability that makes me feel like a badass when I play it, I put it on that 5th mouse button. And then that's an important thing to note, because I say it is.
Sure. Just to make you feel awesome.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay, moving on to the next one, though. Monks. So I have not ever gotten to use this ability because my monk is only level, I think, 58, 59. So tell us about summoning the Zuin pet.
Cool. He has two abilities. I think he has like a chain lightning and a taunt. I'm not sure if the taunt is available to all specs or to just the brewmaster. It seems like it would be available to all specs. Doesn't make too much sense otherwise. But yeah, summon Zhuan. It's some kind of copy of him. You're saying a clone of Zhuan? I think it's Zhuan himself. Like, why not? You know?
I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the ability says. Does it say Zhuan?
Yeah, it says summon Zhuan the White Tiger.
By the way, are we saying this correctly?
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope we say it as wrong as possible to get a little bit of feedback on the thing. Well, we call it Zonerism. I'm checking him right now, pulling up the ability. He's a really useful cooldown. The ability is called Invoke Zhuan, the White Tiger. Summon an effigy of Zhuan. So you're right. The White Tiger, for 45 seconds under command. He attacks your primary target and strikes 3 enemies within 10 yards every 1 second with Tiger Lightning. He'll also taunt the target. So I like popping him in times of need. I felt like he used to heal you a bit, but I guess that really isn't the case. At any rate, he was useful to me on the Galakrond fight. If you remember back in Siege Borgamar, when I'm on top of the towers, I like doing the towers tanking. But the woman with the gun was especially brutal.
Yes, she was.
And having him provoke her off of me would reduce the amount of like sheer raw damage I had to soak myself. So he is a really invaluable target just for taking some heat off of you as a tank, but still making sure that the enemies were not getting away. And honestly, as a tank class, having a temporary pet that will taunt stuff for you is really useful. Sometimes when things are going to hell, the only thing you can do is keep all the aggro on you, whether you live or die. Having a pet to taunt something off of you, especially if you're really good with your micromanagement, and especially if you're using macros in order to control this without clicking on buttons, this is a really useful tool to have in your toolkit. So I think that was a really cool pet that they gave. Not to mention it's a really strong burst damage AoE cooldown for doing certain trash fights and certain boss fights. I'm really satisfied, and usually I run that talent more than anything else in that row. They're all kind of AoE talents. One of them is Chi Torpedo, which reduces or replaces your roll and makes you heal and do damage to enemies that you roll over with your torpedo. I think it's a little bit clunky, and I like the animation, and I'm not rolling all that much as a tank at all. So you can understand why I would want Zhuan the White Tiger rather than Chi Torpedo, which replaces roll, or Rushing Jade Wind, which replaces that crane kick, spinning crane kick. You know.
Florian says he has returned from the lands of the death. Let's see if that is to be true. Maybe.
So at any rate, yeah.
He returns! Maybe?
Hello, gentlemen.
Welcome back to the living. We are all the way down on monks at this point, but we do have a question to ask you as our resident warlock expert of choice. Evan says he doesn't have it on his warlock. What happened? What was it called? Where did it go? The minion you could summon as a warlock, it was the big dude with a sword. I think it was called a Felguard, and he did the whirlwind like warriors do. Do you know what I'm talking about?
What do you mean, where did he go?
Evan says he doesn't have him.
He's totally there. I have him.
What is he called?
He's the Fel something.
He is available to Demonology Warlocks. Anyway, of course, in my ineptitude, I was checking on my Affliction Warlock, and I was like, where the heck is he? I don't have access to him as an Affliction Warlock, but if I change to Demonology, I was looking at the Demonology spec page. It says, let's see, Metamorphosis. Let me activate this one. Yep, Wrathguard is available as a basic summon to Demonology Warlocks only. So yeah, he is still around.
Okay. And what does he turn into?
A Wrathguard, which is weird. Oh, I already have that. the Wrathguard is what he turns into. Without it, you are looking at a Felguard.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yep. I feel much better now.
Okay, so there's a missing link. Jesus Christ.
I blame Evan for all of our problems.
No hate mail, please. I think we've righted our wrong here. We want to be factually correct whenever possible.
Which is all Evan's fault. Just wanted to make sure people know that.
Yeah. Yeah, lay it on me. I am scapegoat number 1 for the show.
Moving along, though, the last one really is priests. And priests, they can summon a shadow fiend. Now, quick question, though, back on the topic of monks. Are you able to control / give orders to the Xuan clone at all?
Yeah, he is definitely controllable, and I can turn his taunt on or off, autocast, do that kind of thing. Move, stay, follow.
Okay, because like you can do the same thing with elementals with shamans. There's even a talent to get upgraded elementals, which they get new powers and stuff like that. But priests, you can summon the Shadow Fiend, but you cannot tell that thing what to do at all. There is a talent to make it better, to turn it into a Mind Flayer, which is the tentacle hat. But you're not able to tell these things what to do at all. They're still nice though. Damage increase, and they give you mana back.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really a whole lot to say on them because that they don't have anything besides that. Just whenever they swing, you get mana. So, use it on cooldown.
Yeah, pretty much easy as that. Even though Blizzard's saying that, kind of like Tranquility, they don't like having a button you just hit on cooldown and nothing else. So what does the Mind Flayer guy do, or the regular guy, the Shadow Fiend, do for you besides return mana? He must have some kind of PvP utility, or
he's pretty good. He deals okay damage.
So it's a good, even if you're at full mana, you want to use him as for burst.
Pretty much. I mean, he has a pretty low cooldown, and if you get the Mind Flayer talent, it's like a 30-second cooldown, and so it's just extra damage, which is nice.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. So it's a little bit more diversified than just the Innervate ability. I always thought it was kind of an awkward way to return mana. Of course, this thing has been around since, I think, the Burning Crusade, right?
It has been around as long as I have been playing, so that is Wrath.
Pretty much in its current form, it hasn't changed very much at all, so I'm just a little bit surprised at that.
Yeah, the only thing that's different is the Mind Flayer talent. The Shadow Fiend itself has kind of just always been the Shadow Fiend.
Well, cool. Yeah, it just seems like kind of an awkward way to restore mana because, of course, if you're at DPS casting Shadow Priest, you want that mana, and I guess this is available to Holy and Disciplined Priest too, isn't that right?
Yep, it's available to everybody.
But in order to return mana to you, it has to successfully melee hit a target. Of course, if your target's running around in PvP, for example, it's not going to get very many hits in at all. If it's a boss,
that's not quite true. The Shadow Fiend's pretty darn fast. It's faster.
Is it really?
It's faster than you are running.
Will it return mana based on the damage it does? So a heavily armored target's not going to give you as much mana back?
Nope, it gives you a percentage per swing.
I
think it's 3% for every time it hits.
So that's a little bit more normalized. Is it really in danger from AoE from a boss fight that makes it difficult to cast?
Nope.
Well, dang, I think that's a pretty good deal then. It seems like they really streamlined it and just made it an interesting way to get your mana back rather than an unreliable and kind of dodgy way.
And it's interesting, though, and just on a little side note, that you brought that up about how Blizzard doesn't like things like Tranquility, but, I mean, I don't know. I wonder what Blizzard looks at when they make those statements and stuff, because I don't know, maybe if they look at like super high competitive levels, maybe they see that people are relying on it too much, but it just felt like a nice thing to have on more casual ratings. Yeah, and I don't just mean Shadow Fiend, I mean any of them.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a standard thing of Blizzard saying one thing and doing another. Maybe that's the way they would like the game to be, but they can't quite get everything to balance out. At least that's what I think is most likely.
Possibly. Like I said, I just really don't know. Moving along, though. So that does still leave us with 4 classes that we have not talked about, and that is Rogue, Druid, Paladin, and Warrior. Any of these that you would like us to discuss first, anybody?
Well, the Druid, depending on how you look at it, kind of is a combat pet. So, I mean, we could talk about that.
Dude, that's racist.
Hey, look, I'm not the one who's turning into a bear over here, okay? They chose that.
Sick 'em! Go get 'em!
But yeah, none of those classes really have any kind of combat pet, at least none that I am aware of.
The only one that you could make a possible statement for is Paladin. Paladin is able to summon the weird, like, guardian guy, but he doesn't really seem to do anything.
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's the kind of, like, because I know we were talking about this before when we were choosing to do this. We wanted to talk about pets with substance, generally pets that have an actual ability bar and the like. And I don't think he has that. I think he just kind of shows up for a little while and just kind of, I don't know, hangs out, does his thing, and
almost
then leaves.
Like the Hunter's Stampede. It summons a whole lot of animals. You can't control any of them. They just do their thing and then peace.
Yeah. Like for Stampede, that's what you said, right?
Right, it's just little sprites, and they're not controllable, and they attack the target, and then they go away. They're kind of like the Guardian of Ancient Kings. He does his thing. I think in the Holy Spec, he might help you heal, and then after his duration is up, he just goes, but there's no way to control him, or there's no pet bar, that kind of thing.
I believe that to be a very fair statement and to be correct. So, do you think, though, and like now, though, the whatever he's called, the Holy Guardian or whatever he is, now he's just a tank cooldown. All he does is reduce damage that you take for a certain amount of time.
Right.
On that note, though, do you think that any of these classes need or should have in any way some sort of pet that they can summon? I mean, like,
right.
How would you feel if like rogues could summon another rogue, for instance, or something like that, like a small, like another little, like, shadow assassin that came out and, like, stabbed your opponent for a little while?
I would be more enthusiastic about a rogue pet, quote unquote, that was just a shadow of the rogue himself. Like if the rogue was such a good shadow stalker that he could inflict damage with his shadow, and his shadow was actually a separate entity. Of course, this is only an illusion created by technique, but it would appear in game mechanically as a controllable pet on a cooldown. That was just a version of the rogue that was black, almost like a mirror image.
Shadow clone jutsu.
Yeah.
Going full on Naruto with the rogues there.
It sounds like you're about
really
to jump
cool.
straight. Sounds like you're about to jump straight into a ninja class there.
Yeah, dude. Why not?
Can
that
we
would
get
be
one of those?
I mean, how different would it be from a rogue class?
Don't care. It wouldn't be called a rogue. It'd be called a ninja. I'm sold.
When you have these blade dancers come, I mean, whatever you call them. What are they called now? Demon hunters. So like another one hand weapon wielding, agility, leather wearing classes. I think a ninja would have to be a cloth wearing class. That would be really cool, right?
Sure.
Melee DPS wears cloth. Oh man, we'll have to make that a separate topic sometime else.
And then while we're at it, we'll just go ahead and make warlocks tanks and make mages healers and.
Hey, well, we still want warlock tanks. At least I do.
I really would not be opposed to it.
As for druid, I think druids can, according to going back and dipping into the Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons canon, druids are the ones that had the animal companions to begin with, not hunters or rangers, as you might call them. So the fact that the druids don't have an animal companion in this game is a little bit of a disappointment. If you are an old school RPG player, I think. Do you guys have thoughts or opinions about that?
I kind of agree with that because, like, you would think if anybody could get along with an animal, it would be a druid before any of these other classes. So it is kind of bizarre that they at least don't have like a cooldown where they kind of, like the hunter stampede, for example. I wouldn't be surprised to see a druid just kind of like raise his hands in the air and it's just animals burst forth from this forest, sort of like Aquaman summoning all his fish for a mass attack. I'm honestly surprised it's not an ability now I think about it. It makes so much sense.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about Warrior, though? We haven't talked at all about Warrior. Anything at all?
I think for the Warrior, pets really make less sense than anything else. At least to me. Because why? I mean, why? What is he going to have? Why would he have a pet? Why would he need a pet? I mean, there's there's a tradition in some Western militaries. I don't know how it is elsewhere of war dogs. So you could kind of work that into it, but I really don't see what you would do there.
I'm not sure entirely of the. Well, go ahead.
I said win the game.
Win the game. I thought you were going to say win. Never mind.
Like in a time sense?
Yeah, in a time sense. Warriors, I think, maybe this is from playing Oblivion and Elder Scrolls and stuff like that, I thought were usually, like, kind of always associated with a guild or dojo or some place where they were trained, and all warriors belong to a kind of order or caste. Of course, with the Forsaken, you have the Death Guards and the Kokron Elite, the Orcs and things like that. And I think if you were going to have a pet for a warrior, it would be like a companion or a peer, almost like we were saying at the beginning with the rogues. I can imagine them having a stampede style cooldown where they have a bunch of adepts or acolytes or something like that just rush in and try to take down your target for you and then run away afterwards or die by the sword. Does that make any sense? Like, that's the only kind of cooperation I can imagine with a warrior, aside from like a shield that comes to life or a giant two-handed sword that works on its own, like a dancing rune weapon that the Death Knights have. But that's also still kind of shaky, and I think logic is trying to push me in the direction of Florian's opinion, which is warriors really don't belong with a pet class that makes the least sense out of all of our options here.
Well, there is actually still one more to talk about, and that is demon hunters. Are they going to have a pet of any kind? We don't know right now, obviously, but will they?
It would definitely take something from the warlocks, but it kind of makes sense that they would have a demon as a pet, Just, not like the warlock where they're cooperating with the demon and summoning it, but like, for demon hunter, I guess they'd, I don't know, beat the crap out of a demon and just kind of enslave it, I suppose, keep it on a leash. I'm not really sure how they would handle that, but that seems to make the most sense.
I would say that they are Fel infused, and they have these Fel energies that they use for their powers and things like that. Is that right, more or less? So maybe some kind of magical, what do you call it, incorporeal manifestation of their demonic energies. This Fel energy takes the form of like a serpent or a raptor or something like that, and attacks along with them, and that might keep the theme of being like a Fel infused companion that isn't necessarily a demon, but because of course I think they kind of don't like demons in this canon.
You could kind of do that. Another thing kind of playing on the same thing would be, since demon hunters are hunters, you could just have them tame pets, but they sort of Fel infuse the pets, and then the pets become a demonic version of whatever that pet would normally be with different abilities. Of course, there's no way that'll happen. It's way too much work for Blizzard to do, but it would be pretty awesome to see.
Exactly. Yeah, agreed.
Any pets that you would like to see added in the future?
Moose.
Moose. Need the moose pet. Bring it to me now. Please, Blizzard.
I'd like to be able to see kind of pets that are racial pets, and maybe are required to gain exalted reputation with a certain faction, a racial faction, and then you get to summon a kind of racial pet, like for example undead or Forsaken would be able to summon an abomination kind of thing, like some of these undead models that aren't player controllable, but we know that the undead have access to these abominations. In a Tauren, you could summon like a Kodo. I don't think those are tameable. They are a mount, but I don't think they're able to be used as a tameable pet for hunters, if I'm not mistaken. That kind of thing. Does that make any sense? Stormwind, you can summon a lion type of thing. This kind of idea.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, that could work.
I'm just playing this. Welcome to the mailbag, everybody. You can send your questions, feedback, suggestions, and otherwise to our email at thecastbar@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at Castbar Podcast. You can leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. In addition, you can leave feedback and questions on our website at www.thecastbar.com. Now, we only have one question today, and it's not really a question. I'm going to summarize this as best I can because it is quite long. He says, my name is Yantax from the Proudmoore server. I'm playing a Warlock main and have 3 100 alts, a Rogue, a Death Knight, and recently a Hunter. Not relevant, but I am playing from the Netherlands on a US server. Congratulations to you, because I cannot imagine the type of latency that you must have. I love your show, especially the time you take to cover each topic, and it makes it enjoyable to listen to. I listen to your show while driving into work. You don't have to cover you don't have to cover everything below in one show. It's up to you, but I have listened to your call to action from your listeners. We thank you immensely. As an improvement to the show, he wants me to improve the bumpers. I will see what I can do. I just upgraded to Windows 10, so trying to figure out what programs still work it's a fun venture. He does have an idea, though. He has a couple of them, actually. But which one should we take, guys? Just give me a number, 1, 2, or 3. I don't know if you've read this yet.
Or, no, I'm joking.
You suck.
Yeah, let's do the second one.
Second one? Florian, you cool with second one?
Go ahead.
He says, okay, another one is a potential missed content. I started playing with Classic WoW, but skipped Miss Pandaria. Came back with Warlords of Draenor. I quickly leveled my tunes past 85 to 90 in pretty much one zone in Miss Pandaria, and therefore I missed pretty much everything in Mists. I hear very nice references to Mists. What are things I should see or do in Mists to ensure I am getting the awesomeness of the expansion? I'm sure this is true for many people, or maybe even for people who miss Burning Crusade. Maybe we should do some visits down memory lane, particularly in the downtime between expansions. So I think this is a wonderful suggestion. I will have to, if we do a Burning Crusade flashback, I will have to crutch on you guys pretty heavily, as I didn't play.
I like the idea of a flashback. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like we could actually get a whole Castbar special out of that, I think.
It's pretty cool. A lot of people have been playing this game for a long time, but myself included, I was there with the beginning, at the beginning, but I didn't play really most of Cataclysm, past Bastion and Twilight. So there are big chunks that I missed that you guys have played. I think didn't you, Michael, play through a good portion of Cataclysm? I'm not sure if Florian did.
I played a lot in Cataclysm, yes.
And then the other epoch that I missed a good deal of was kind of the middle of Wrath of the Lich King, among the kind of the Ulduar, Eye of Eternity. Did you play any of that, Florian?
Yeah, I have Wrathed extensively. So I think between the three of us, we have a pretty good spread, pretty good overall grasp of all the different expansions.
As far as kind of talking about things that would be cool to go back and check out if you hadn't yet. I think there are some cool quest lines and some cool reputation grinds that stand out. I think the Netherwing quest line and reputation system is pretty cool and pretty lore heavy and has a pretty fun story that's interactive, of course. And you have that cool mount reward that you get for completing Exalted with them, which is the Netherwing that honestly you don't see very much of at all. And that's the kind of thing that I think it'd be cool to go back and check it out, and I guess like give a synopsis or what kind of content do you think he's looking for here?
I think he's looking for something fun and enjoyable to listen to while he waits for the expansion that's way too far away.
Or he hangs out in traffic.
Or while he hangs out in traffic. I don't know what the traffic is like in the Netherlands, but I really have no idea. Actually, I don't even have a guess. Like, I have no idea. Let us know. What do you have horrible times of rush hour? I've never been there. Never.
How many commutes does it take for you to get through an entire episode of the Castbar?
That's a good question, actually.
So yeah, pretty cool. I'm glad you were reminding us that even though you've been playing since nearly the beginning, there are big chunks of time where you weren't subscribed, and WoW churns out the content so kind of quickly that even if you take a 4 or 5 month break, you might not have ever gone into one of the kind of crucial raids or instances, or done one of the crucial kind of experiences in the game. So yeah, I think that's good to go back and take a look at some stuff that stands out, especially looking back at 10 years of history. There are some zones, there are some quest lines, there are some boss fights even that really are more of an experience than some of the other things that take a background seat when you look at the whole history of this game.
And we will be doing just that. And it'll probably, unless news is literally completely empty, I imagine it'll take the closer look section.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll just have to see how news goes moving forward in the weeks. Moving along. Welcome to the review, everybody. And also, oh man, I already forgot his name. Yantax, thank you so much for your submission to our inbox. That we definitely appreciate that a great deal. And yeah, thank you immensely for that. So, on to the review. Review is something we do each week where we review something, whether it is a 5-man dungeon, a raid, or God knows what else. We split the raid. Yes, we split the raid. Melee, DPS, healers, go. We split the review into 3 sections: ambience, gameplay, and lore. Those ambience is everything you see, hear, feel, etc. And then the gameplay is, the content of the game, the numbers, the loot, the everything. And then lore is the story behind whatever it is that we are reviewing, because Warcraft would be nothing without the story that we have in front of us. So, ambience is first. Oh, I didn't say what we're reviewing. We are reviewing Karazhan. Trying to kick off a strong start into a boring 6 months, or however long it's going to be, to get us to the next expansion and get us to where we have, more, just more. Karazhan. This is probably one of the most loved raids, I think, for a very large number of players. It is a beautiful raid and raises so many questions as you're going through it, because as you proceed through, it was one of the first raids that people realized was immensely larger on the inside than it is on the outside, and that tends to, raise questions for people. And then there's, just going to tap into lore just a small bit there of, there's the whole question of, what is this weird, astral area I see on the outside of the windows and stuff when I'm inside. It's just a very interesting comparison, I think. But going into the ambience itself, Karazhan is a beautiful, beautiful raid. In terms of lore, it was the home of the wizard Medivh. He was the last guardian. He was the guardian of Earth, and as such, he had a beautiful home. So this place just absolutely always just blows me away. It has this very, what would be a good word, very regal feel to it. Everything just feels so royal, but in a sense that exceeds that of even Stormwind Keep. Everything here is just, absolutely gorgeous. I can't really describe it any other way. I'll go ahead and pass it off from there.
It also had a kind of hedonistic approach, on the tune of the blood elves, you know. He had like these concubine rooms in there, you know. So it's like royalty and lots of cash without needing to maintain a good public image for a bunch of subjects.
Did I miss something? Where are these? Oh, upstairs?
On the way to Maiden of Grief or whatever. The hallway right before you get to Maiden has these side rooms, and you fight these. I don't know if they're wraith women, like the ghosts of these concubines that charm you with this super long CC and turn you against your allies. I do know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And then they make you run back.
Yeah, they're very charming indeed. And then if you go into those rooms, they're very...
I don't think those are necessarily his concubines, though. I think those are actually, and this is bleeding into lore here, I think this is more of words, just like, because, I mean, there's the theater and there's the big party and stuff. I don't think those are necessarily Medivh. I think those were just, like, people who were there, if that makes sense at all.
Well, the guy, going in the ambience, the layout of this place is outrageous, and he's got an opera house. I mean, he must have been entertaining people, so maybe this is for the entertainment of his guests.
Maybe?
Well, it's not necessarily for Medivh, because Medivh was not the first person to live in Karazhan. He actually took it over from its previous owner, who is currently unknown. And there may have been other owners before that, so they may have set all that stuff up.
Maybe. I don't know. But going on...
once again, going to...
One of the coolest things about Karazhan, though, is it's set up so completely, and I think that's not quite the right word for it. It has... What is the word that I need here? It is set up in such a way that it is complete. Complete's the best word that I got. I mean, like they have the servants' quarters, they have like the downstairs, they have places for, everyone's horses and stuff, and then they have like that big meeting hall, the ballroom, and then you get to go like behind the stage and you get to proceed on and you get to see everything else that is in the King's Tower, where everything else that happened and was there, whereas it has this flow of like, here's the front door, here's this walk up, and it just, everything encompassed in one building is just so cool because it has this flow of, you see every room and every room's purpose and everything like that. Whereas like, even in Stormwind Keep, some rooms really just kind of seem like they're rooms,
Yeah, this is one of the things that, going all the way back to our review of High Mall, I really liked about that instance, which was that... Was it High Mall? Now I can't remember. Some instances in this game, 5-man's in raids, look more realistic, more lived in, more like this is a big keep and it has spaces for the people to live and it has spaces for the people to eat. And it's really kind of consistent and thorough with the details. And Karazhan is extraordinarily thorough with the details. Which really makes it stand out and what helps it tell such a compelling story.
What is your guys' favorite section of Karazhan?
Let's see. I come up with something right now. I think my favorite section of Karazhan is the trek from the Curator all the way to Shade of Iran. I remember this most keenly, mostly because Shade of Iran and the Curator were such awesome fights, but also in between the two of those was the fight for that demon, that satyr guy that dropped the Zergling staff, or the Fel Hunter staff, one of the coolest looking staffs in the game, or at least up until that point, absolutely. Just because that was my favorite kind of section, the favorite kind of collection of bosses all in a row. You have all these up and down staircases. You have these big, wide halls. Trash pulls were complicated and tough, but not necessarily tedious. And I thought that was a really good stretch. That's always where I seem to really kind of have the most fun, and I didn't consider the instance to have really gotten started until we had gotten that far.
Sure. What about you, Florian? What was your favorite area in Karazhan?
probably the Opera Hall, simply because my first time playing through it, I didn't expect that. It's like, you're fighting dudes, you're running around, you're doing the WoW thing, and then it's like, you're going to do an opera now, and then you're on a stage. Of course, you fight people on the stage, which is pretty normal for WoW, but it was a nice little bit of a change, and you've got like the guys who worked at the opera, and they have their little background dialogue and all that. So I felt it was a really nice, how should I put it, change of pace within the dungeon itself.
Sure.
What about you, Michael? Yeah, you have a special part of the dungeon you like the most as far as aesthetics?
I really, really like right after the curator, and not quite up to Shade of Iran, just that big library expanse. I love libraries, by the way. I don't read books nearly as much as I would like to. It takes too much time. I listen to a lot of audiobooks now. But it just, that room is where Karazhan really starts opening up, where the mana worms and stuff are. It's when you really get to see how big it is. And I think that's just really where Karazhan really starts to shine. I think there's some definitely impressive things like the Opera Hall and stuff before that, but I think that's where you really just get to really, I don't know, have a speechless moment in terms of what things look like.
Yeah, each kind of section of this place is completely distinct from the next, and they're really good at separating the parts of the building based on function. Of course, you have the Opera Hall, you have the upstairs, the Opera Hall with all the statuary and decorations, you have this almost ballroom near the dining hall where Morose is fought, and you can tell there's like a feast on the table in the dining room, and that is connected to the servants' quarters where the servant area where the kitchen and stuff is. I mean, that's logical, right? And the kitchen's connected to the downstairs basement where you have all the storage, and the stables are, where they would be expected to be, right at the very entrance of the place and just around to the side. This place is laid out almost like a real, like a mansion, tower, castle would be, as far as logic and with a use in mind. Whereas going into Tempest Keep and like the Botanica and all these weird instances and the Draenei ships, you're thinking, this is a really cool dungeon, but how would this place have functioned in its actual use? I mean, Karazhan, there's no question. It's very kind of recognizable because of the human elements, I guess.
Well, and one of the other things that I can attest to this place, and this kind of blends into gameplay a little bit, is that we have all three of us kind of have this issue with bosses that always have their own room / arena / just this is where we shall fight, this is where we shall stand, blah 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 blah. And a lot of the bosses in Karazhan, there are some rooms where it's like, this is definitely like set up to be a boss fight, especially whatever the dragon's name is. But I mean, like the curator, he's just walking down a hallway.
So, the curator, you said?
Yeah.
So you're saying that his kind of arena is not an arena, almost?
It doesn't feel as staged.
Yeah, and that makes it a little bit more believable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I definitely agree. There are, however, bosses in this dungeon that are incredibly staged. For example, Malkazine at the very end, I mean, his platform is basically like the architects were saying, now, where would you like your final boss arena to be? And Medivh said, on the roof, please, or the previous owner.
I would like it over here, thank you.
Make it about 60 feet wide in a circle with no furniture or stonework to relieve the emptiness of it,
Sure. And I can see where that is, but at the same time, it doesn't, because of the story of Karazhan and how odd that feels altogether, I'm not nearly as upset about it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes sense.
And we'll get a little bit more into that come story time. So, grades then for Karazhan.
Oh, this place is definitely an A+. I mean, you just have to go through a few of the screenshots if you don't want to go all the way there yourself to know that every square foot of this place is just packed with as much detail as they could fit in the art team. without feeling too cluttered, without feeling too overdone. And I think making a castle that seems lived in, with a bunch of different rooms, especially if you have a dining hall, an opera house. I mean, it's almost like a slow pitch. This is something that's easy to design because it's recognizable compared to a demon's lair in a cave. It's a lot harder to make that interesting and full of detail that's compelling and tells a story. So although it was kind of a slow pitch, they nailed the execution, unlike almost anything else I've seen in this game. So yeah, without any reservations, A+ from me.
Florian.
I am also going to give it an A+, simply because, once again, well, Evan's already gone over most of it, but the incredible amount of detail put into it, and also I like the fact that they did a bunch of different things and different areas look different. Usually when you have a raid, it uses a 1 tile set, maybe 2 tile sets from Blizzard's big box of art that they have somewhere hidden away. But Karazhan uses a bunch of different things. Different areas look different. There's a lot of variety and a massive amount of detail put into it. I think this is, in my opinion, aesthetically the best dungeon in the game.
And I have an A+ written down as well for much the same reasons, and I am not going to reiterate things over again. So A+ across the board for the ambience in Karazhan. Now, Evan, will you please lead us into gameplay?
Sure. Well, this place has quite a few bosses, and each one comes after the other. I'm looking for a list of all the bosses. Yeah, 1, 2. You start out with Ottoman the Huntsman. He's a guy that is on a horse. This is a really kind of cool boss fight, almost like Rend Blackhand. You fight him a little bit, and then he'll dismount, and then you'll fight him and his horse. You have to manage aggro, that kind of thing. This was a fun fight. This is a good intro fight, and this is the kind of fight that you could take a newbie group in, clear up to him, and then have a pretty good shot at getting down. I think it's important to put this kind of fight at the very beginning of a dungeon. There's an added bonus that this guy drops his mount, which I'm not entirely sure if that's a design saying we want to get people in here, so let's make the first boss drop a really sweet mount, or just saying we want a boss that drops a mount, and the only one that makes sense is the stable man, or the guy in the stable. So maybe a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Morose, I think, is one of the most complex and interesting fights in this place, and he's only the second boss. He comes with 4 ads that are random, I think, each week. They represent a class and spec, like Holy Paladin, Fury Warrior, Warlock and Priest. And depending on the 4 ads you get, you have to crowd control them or kill them in a different order. And this is something that's been repeated quite a few times. The strategy of doing this fight is going to change depending on the 4 ads that you get. So this is back in the heyday of bring your Shadow Priest because he's a mana battery, bring your Moonkin and bring an Elemental Shaman or an Enhancement Shaman to put Storm Strike on, but make sure your Enhancement Shaman doesn't cast, Lightning Bolt because you want the Moonkin Starfire to soak up the extra nature damage kind of thing, So you had Paladins casting was it Exorcism or something that used to fear undead and demon characters. So these random ads that would come up in this ad group, you'd have one paladin chain fearing one, you'd have a priest using shackle undead on another, and these are things that Blizzard doesn't do anymore because they want you to bring the player, not the class. So a lot of the classes are more homogenized, and the challenges are more homogenized to be able to be defeated by any class. And I think you're losing a little bit of an opportunity here because it's really cool when your paladin is more effective against undead. These days, that's more kind of glossed over. Let's see, the next one, Opera Event. This is another challenge that changed depending on the week. There are a couple of operas, I think 3 of them, Romeo and Juliet, the Wizard of Oz, and
the Little Red Riding Hood.
Little Red Riding Hood, of course. This is really cool. Like Florian was saying, you're part of the opera. You start the event, and then you have these NPCs that represent the story characters, and you have to deal with them a specific way. Romeo and Juliet, you had to kill at the same time because if one died, the other one would resurrect their lover. In the Little Red Riding Hood, you had to kite, I think, the the werewolf around constantly, and then the Wizard of Oz, the scarecrow, was a big harvest golem, and if you cast a fire spell on him, he was disoriented, so you had to chain fire spells. A lot of people made their warlocks go destruction, even though, if I remember correctly, destruction was a completely inviable spec at the time, and nobody played him because the DPS was so low. But you needed a destruction warlock for this, just because of the fire damage, if you didn't have a mage with you. So there's that. And I think that's a really cool fight, especially the items it dropped would reflect the fight itself,
Including one of the best hunter transmogs ever with the Wolf Slayer rifle.
Oh, cool. Very nice. Yeah, good to mention that. If people are transmog hunters, check that one out.
Just be sure to have your patience pants on, because on the Opera event, each boss has its own loot table. So that each event has its own loot table. So if you don't get the Little Red Riding Hood, you don't get the you don't have a chance to get the whatever I'm trying to say.
The Huntsman's Rifle.
The Huntsman's Rifle, that's correct. And even if you do get Little Red Riding Hood, you might not get the Huntsman's Rifle. So
yeah, it's good to beat your head against the wall with that one. At any rate, I'll just gloss over the other ones. One of the most famous fights in this dungeon is the chess event. You hop into a piece on a chessboard. Medivh himself, or the ghost of him, plays the opposing chessboard. You have one or two abilities based on the piece you're playing. The raid leader is probably going to call out all of the shots. It is possible to solo this event now. You have to read up a guide on how to do that. I'm not positive myself. It requires jumping in and jumping out of different pieces and moving them along the board until you kill the opponent's king. Really,
if you know how to do it, it's
kind.
pretty darn easy.
Nice. Shade of Iran, fun fight. Terrestrian Ilhoof, like the guy that drops that little Zergling staff. Pretty fun fight too. Maiden of Virtue, fun fight. She would do repentance, I guess, on everybody in the entire room, which would make you incapacitated for quite a long time. The healers would have to run into this zone that did AoE holy damage every couple of seconds before she cast repentance, so that they would get damaged by the AoE zone in order to break their incapacitate, so they could heal everybody else. That kind of thing. Cool strategies. Kind of fun to do. The curator would go through he's a big giant robot, the same kind of style the Blood Elves use for the protection of their cities. He would go through a recharge phase where he would take 200% increased damage based on how long he had been active and how long you've been fighting him. So it was possible for warlocks to put a Curse of Doom that after 1 minute would detonate for a crap ton of damage. So they would have to time it using Deadly Boss mods or whatever the big raid mod was at the time. Maybe CT was still on top of his game to cast their Curse of Doom a minute before this phase happened, and warlocks would do silly damage on this fight. Last fight, Prince Malchezaar. Standard kind of giant boss fight. Meteors would eventually fall, so you had to kite him around to make sure the meteor zones didn't really overlap and everybody had a place to stand. Really stressful. Soft Enrage is what we call that kind of fight, where he won't start obliterating everybody with 5,000% increased damage. After 16 minutes, he would just eventually fill the entire arena full of meteors, and you would not be able to survive. So it's different between a hard Enrage and a soft Enrage. So he was fun to fight, and there were a couple of optional bosses. One of them was a summonable boss, Nightbane, who was a big skeletal dragon, I think. And I was never aware what you did in order to summon him. I think you had to finish the entire Karazhan quest line, which we might talk about a little bit in the lore section. But afterwards, you'd be able to summon this guy to the balcony on the side of the place. And
there's still a lot of debate, and maybe Florian will have something for this in the lore section, but depending on whether Nightbane or Prince Malchezaar was actually meant to be the final boss.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, they're both really challenging. Definitely, you weren't trying to kill Nightbane unless you had a good amount of this dungeon on farm. There was another dragon in here too. What was he called? Netherspite. And if you've ever had to stand in a beam in order to fight a boss, I think this was one of the first fights where that was necessary. 3 little crystals around the room in a triangle. You tank him in the middle. You block or decide not to block a beam of light in order to receive a buff that stacks up the longer you stand at the beam. Really kind of cool fight, interesting mechanics, and I think it just contributed to the diversity. I know a lot of times a lot of fights are kind of tank and spank, but in this raid, it might be the rose-colored glasses, but I think this definitely had the greatest proportion of bosses with really unique fight mechanics that make you kind of twist your brain around to make sure you're doing everything right and doing whatever special technique was required to defeat the encounter.
And there's so much cool loot here. I mentioned the Wolf Slayer rifle, the end boss Prince Malchazar. He has a whole bunch of really cool loot. He has Uther's hammer. He has
Gorehowl.
Yeah, he has Gorehowl. He has this awesome bow that is made out of like flaming phoenix wings. Like if you want cool transmog, go to Karazhan. All of the gear there, almost all of it looks really cool. And then, mount. Something else that's really neat on the gameplay is because there's actually a large number of areas in Karazhan that you do not have to go to at all. Like the servants' quarters. You don't have to go to the servants' quarters for really any reason. But if you did, depending on the instance, and it really was completely random, there would be rare spawns. So like mini little silver rares that would spawn at random in the servants' quarters that would drop very quality loot.
Yeah, I remember the whole basement had a mob that would drop something that would become very common to us, which was epic level gear with random stats on it, like of the whale with spirit and stamina, or of the gorilla with intellect and strength, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not a fixed table, but a variable, attribute. Epic style loot with the same number of kind of loot points to it. So that was something that was kind of tough to go after because it took a long time to clear to it, and you might get something that was useless to everybody, but,
it was an option.
It was something else. Yep.
Florian, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Not in particular. The gameplay of this whole place was really good and well designed. One of the things I like that it does, and I'm sure this wasn't intentional at the time, is that some of the gameplay is still relevant now, even though we've greatly outleveled it. The chess game in particular comes to mind. That's something that even if you are high level and can obliterate the rest of the dungeon, you actually have to put forth some effort and use your brain in order to get through that. So I like that some of the gameplay has a little bit of staying power, which is very rare in these older dungeons.
All right then, gameplay time, guys. The grade game stuff, words and things. Florian.
I'm gonna give it an A.
What holds it from a plus for you?
What holds it from a plus for me? I'm not sure if it's still required now, but in order to fight, what was the guy's name, Nightbane, you had to do a quest chain that was outside of and completely unrelated to the raid. And I thought that was kind of annoying and weird and didn't make any sense whatsoever. So, that kind of made the gameplay a little weird.
And yes, you do still have to do that.
Okay, you still have to do that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of wandering around and doing things outside of the raid to get raid stuff done.
Sure. Evan, where are you sitting?
A+ again. If there's an instance that was as fun as this to play through in current content, then I would be going crazy on it.
It is an A+ for me as well. I think all of the mechanics in here, in terms of the raid, are fantastic and wonderful. I think they're incredibly well done, and I just think it's great. Trash had lots of really interesting mechanics. There was lots of this is a raid that had a lot of extra to offer you, which is a very uncommon thing for raids now. I mean, the stuff that we get now is, well, not. I guess is the best way that I can describe it. They only put in exactly as much as they need to to make ends meet. So, I personally was very happy with this. A+ for me, 2 A+s and an A. I think that still equals an A+. Florian, story time.
Story time. Well, I wish I could tell you guys the story of Karazhan, but I can't because a lot of it is unknown. It's one of the places in World of Warcraft that has more mystery than any other because we don't know a lot of its history. We do know that it's an incredible magical place. It's where all the ley lines of Azeroth meet in a point under Karazhan, which a long time ago caused a huge explosion, creating Deadwind Pass. And then some guy decided, hey, I'll just build like a crazy mage tower on top of this, because it would be a great place to do crazy mage stuff. And then eventually Medivh ended up living there. That's pretty much all we know about it, really. But from having gone through the tower and you see all this stuff, you see like the crazy harem quarters and this big opera, and like you just kind of wonder, who was this guy who was here before Medivh? What else is going on here? It's a very strange and mysterious place, and I think that makes it like lore-wise, one of the most interesting places in WoW, and it's a place I really wish we could revisit at some point and learn more about.
And there's so many cool little things here. So, for those who don't know, Aran, the Shade of Aran, the guy that you fight, is actually Medivh's father, correct?
Oh, yeah, he refers to Medivh as being his son in his battle text.
Okay. He actually, if you have, which you can no longer get, if you have Atiesh, the Staff of the Guardian, which you see Khadgar with currently, if you walk into his chamber with that, he has a mental breakdown and freaks out. Like, what? And he asks questions like, did he send you? What are you doing with that? Blah, 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 blah. Because Medivh had trapped his father's soul there to torture him for answers. Which is, kind of twisted and creepy if you think about it. You're torturing your own dad to get information. But that is not what we are currently discussing. But it's just neat things like that are extra. Although, do you know at all, Florian, what the words and stuff, why there is one of the Titan, like mini Titans, the Maiden of Virtue or whatever her name is, why she's there?
That's one of the many, many things that we don't know. Like, Karazhan is a weird place, and it's full of weird stuff that the guy before Medivh put in there, and that's one of the things he put there.
It's kind of strange that the Hall of Concubines or whatever is the hall that leads up to the Maiden of Virtue, who's kind of the antithesis of all the behavior that would have been going on in the prior couple of rooms. So I'm not entirely sure if she, given the high level of kind of cosmic energy or the crazy amount of magic in the place as far as ley lines and all that, amplified the unsavory acts of debauchery that were happening there. She kind of appeared or was summoned there or came there of her own volition to try to clean the place up. Those are the first three postulations I would make.
Sure. So then, what would you be grading lore, Florian?
Well, based on the lore we have, and also the massive amount of potential, I'm going to give it an A. This place is like crazy awesome. It's mysterious. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here, and it's probably one of the most fascinating, interesting, rich places in World of Warcraft, and also somewhere we haven't been to in 4 or 5 expansions. It's really about time to go back there.
I still have a couple questions. Did they say that this Karazhan itself would be would have something to do with Legion as an expansion?
It wasn't stated, but I feel like you could very easily connect the two. Like if Blizzard wanted to make a Karazhan thing, they easily could. I don't think they will, though.
Any chance that this is going to be involved with the Mage legendary weapon?
If the Mage legendary weapon would be anywhere, it feels like Karazhan would be the place. It's the magiest place in Azeroth, as far as I know. Well, short of aside from Dalarn, of course.
But there's also what's it called? The city.
Dalaran?
Oh, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Dalaran.
I don't pronounce words good.
I talk good words. Shush.
Yeah, Dalaran. Definitely. That would be really cool to see. But the other question, I guess, I know there's this hidden extra dungeon underneath of Karazhan that you get to on the other side of the spot from the entrance of this place with the Tomb of the Underground Sinners, that kind of thing. All these really creepy events, and you can kind of glitch yourself into there.
Crypts.
The crypts. No specific lore reference to this. No lore nuggets inside that place. Is that true?
There is no official reason for it to be there that Blizzard has given. It was no lore reason, I guess is what I need to say. They stated that they had originally intended to use it, but based on its design and how they were trying to shoot for like a more kid-friendly game and how bloody creepy that place is, they elected to close it off and just scrap it because, well, undead bodies floating upside down in water and stuff like that. That's real creepy, Blizzard. Like, way to go on winning the creep contest. You did a good job.
Yeah, seriously, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen in this game. Another guy I want to mention, Archmage Alturas. He is in the very entrance to this place, and he gives you your quest that he's a representative of the faction of the Violet Eye, and as you kill monsters and things in Karazhan, you get a reputation with the Violet Eye. You upgrade a ring, which is kind of like what the legend. Yeah, I mean, you upgrade a ring in Draenor as well. This kind of, you have a little base ring that has stats for you, and then as you increase your reputation, you get bonus versions of the same ring. This guy himself, though, is he a previous apprentice? What is the Violet Eye in general? Are they associated with Dalaran?
I do not know. Florian, do you have any idea?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
Let's see. As far as we know, Violet Eye is just a reputation gained by killing mobs inside Karazhan. It's unknown whether Khadgar was a member of the Violet Eye, and it might be important to mention that Khadgar is one of Medivh's apprentices.
He is Medivh's apprentice.
The one apprentice of Medivh.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Which, if someone wants a quick rundown of what happened, so basically, Medivh was the last guardian. You see the shadow of him essentially in there, and he was entrusted with defending the Earth. But when he wanted to defend the Earth, long ago, Sargeras had put a portion of himself inside Medivh's mother, whose name I can never pronounce. It's like Awyn, word stuff. It's like Aegwenn. So however you pronounce that, I can spell it better than I can say it. So he ended up being corrupted because, well, Sargeras is a real evil guy. And with that, he essentially started going insane, and Khadgar realized this and went and kind of tried to stop him. They got in a big mage fight, and Khadgar is actually only technically 23 years old or something like that. But because of a spell that Medivh used on him that drastically aged him, he's now 50. Because, well, Medivh.
50 years old.
He's an old man.
Let's see, the Violet Eye I'm seeing now is a secret sect founded by the Kirin Tor of Dalaran to spy on the Guardian of Tirisfal in his tower. So even though he's now dead, the Violet Eye is still there defending against evil that has taken hold in the absence of Medivh himself. So that's the explanation they give on Wowhead. I'm not sure where their source is, but it's a sect of mages who were spying on him, and then maybe helped defeat him, maybe not. And now they kind of take care of the place just to make sure nothing that's inside there gets out of hand, as might very well be the case with those entities like Prince Malkazine, who seems to be quite powerful. Speaking of lore, isn't it also important to mention that Prince Malkazine is on the roof of Karazhan in an area that seems to be outside of the normal flow of time and space, which is why he drops such artifacts as Gorehowl itself and Uther's Hammer itself.
Yep, he seems to be from a future timeline, essentially, when these individuals are gone, and he has acquired their weapons. And a lot of Karazhan is that way, though. I mean, Karazhan is much larger on the inside than it is on the outside, even though from sections of Karazhan you can see outside it, and you'll walk from one area that looks normal to the next area, which has this big expanse of, this, like I said, this void expanse that exists above it, and words and stuff and things. So nobody really knows what that is. I mean, Blizzard at the time probably was like, this just looks real cool, and but now that, Warcraft has continued to get even bigger, now there has to actually be, at some point, I hope we get some sort of reasoning behind that. And maybe we will in Legion. It seems that Khadgar has taken over as much as you can use that term, taken over Karazhan and is using that as his home. He is his home base, and so maybe we'll find something out in regards to that. Maybe. I don't know. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
What is your grade for lore, Evan?
I'm going to give it an A just because it sparked such a cool conversation between all of us, and it's taken a while to get through all of it. It's a lot of meat to chew, and a lot more meat than, say, Heimal had.
I am going to give it an A-. It's not that the lore isn't good. The biggest problem that Karazhan's lore has is that it is really, really difficult to get to because it's spread across so many different things, stories, and timelines. A lot of the story of Karazhan is tied up in books, in novels, in comics. It's spread all over the place, so to get the actual story for Karazhan itself, some of it's in Blizzard short stories. It's an incredibly difficult thing to actually get your hands on or know what is actually important, and so I think that really takes away from it because people just don't know what they need to get if they wanted to learn more about Karazhan, which is unfortunate because, as you can probably tell from this review, Karazhan is quite awesome. At least we think so. You don't have to agree. So
best grade we've given anything so far.
That brings us to, what is that? Two A's and an A-, which averages lore out in an A. Gameplay and ambience were both A+, with an A from lore. Means that this might be, and I don't know, I would have to go back and look, but that does give us an average out of an A+ on Karazhan, which I'm not surprised at all because, I mean, everyone seems to love Karazhan, not just us, just anyone who's ever had any experience with Karazhan ever is just like, oh my god, Karazhan. But it is nice to have an in-depth look at Karazhan to show why it is, such a loved place. Any closing thoughts on the Burning Crusade 10-man raid of Karazhan?
They don't make them like they used to.
It's true. It's true. Although, I will attest again that I drastically enjoyed Siege of Orgrimmar, and I'm not sad. I'm not sad, I'm not sorry. I really did enjoy that raid a lot.
There you go.
So, I think it's time for me to hit this button. That is our show, everybody. I feel as though I don't have a... What time is it? I feel like we've been talking for like 5 hours. Not in a bad way, but like my mouth is like, you haven't stopped moving forever. Can you do something? Take drinks of water. Stop playing Diablo. It doesn't help when you're drooling over loot and stuff that drops. I mean, that's just more dehydration that you're experiencing.
Yeah, true. Tell me about it.
But I definitely enjoyed this episode. And again, please send questions, suggestions, and feedback to thecastbar@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at Castbar Podcast. Send us a voicemail at 508-738-2278, or you can find other ways to contact us through our website at www.thecastbar.com. All of the music for our bumpers, besides, the cute little ones like this, are done by a gentleman named Kevin MacLeod. You can find all of his work at Incomtech.com. It is royalty-free under the Creative Commons license Attribution 3.0. What all that legal jargon means is that it is free for you to use as long as you put his name on it in some way, shape, or form, whether it is on the credits or in the end of the show, etc. Just be sure to let him know, or give him money. That is an option. I'm pretty sure if you wanted to, you could give him money. But podcasting actually already costs enough money for me. I don't need to throw money at music when we can do other things like giveaways. Shh, spoilers. So, if you would like to get a hold of me, you can find me on pretty much all forms of social media under the handle at Schwahn Michael or Schwahn, and that is spelled Schwahn. Evan, where are people able to find you?
If you want to get in touch with me, just send an email over to thecastbar@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at EDCWow.
Wonderful. Florian.
Send more emails to the Castbar. That is all.
Florian likes emails a lot. It makes him happy.
Have we had a 2 email week yet? I think we have, right?
We've had a few, yes.
Okay, cool. Let's try for that 3 email week. I feel like we can do that.
And I look forward to the day, should the day ever arrive, of where the Castbar gets to have an episode that is nothing but answering mail.
Oh, if only.
That would be a good episode, a good milestone for me to ever hit, is if we ever get to experience the day where the entire episode is nothing but, we need to clean out the mailbag. That would be a dream. That is a dream in my brain. A dream that will hopefully one day come true.
There you go.
Anyway, anything else, guys, before we close out? Run away, hide, get food, go to the bathroom, otherwise. No? We ready to go? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Let me play this. Let's go.
You are out of time.